we're going to conclude the program now. We have a few family speakers. We will start with Rabbanit Batya Friedman.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. I know some of you came really far. Really appreciate your patience. A lot of people were asking and the people on Zoom, we can't forget the people on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. I know it's awkward to zoom in. So people were wondering why we didn't do this in Crown Heights. As my brother likes to say, she was the pillar of a community there for over 53 years. And then there were, why don't we do the Shloshim there? We were back and forth. And my mother, as we know, drove a lot of people around town. And she was all over the boroughs. Coming back here, we were zocha to partner with the Igud, and I know my husband mentioned that the Igud is unique because it has diverse rabbis in it. And that's really who my mother represented, diversity. She didn't care what color, what kippah you wore, or didn't wear, and covered your hair or didn't cover your hair. That's, she just loved you because you were a human being. And so it was really apropos that we were able to partner with the Igud to come here and in Flatbush. And, when we drove into Flatbush, it was one of these places, that brings back, like she reminded me, we came back to the Abasaras, we used to have all the Milava Malkas back here. This was brought back a lot of memories, the boys going to the United Lubavitch Yeshiva, driving with them because they missed the bus, and so on and so forth. So we brought her back here to really, remember her part of her life here that she was all throughout. So we know it wasn't convenient for many of you to join us, but we really appreciate those. And Hindalea, as I mentioned to you, you're already continuing her legacy by being that driver, because you know how many people have to go, I need a ride? I'm like, Sylvia's not here anymore. She can't drive you. And here Hindalea stood up and continued her work, so thank you. Okay, so I was very quiet throughout the Shiva and the funeral, and I wasn't going to talk today, but Orchaya asked me, she said, why don't you write a biography of your mom? And I found it very therapeutic, so I thank you, Orchaya, for giving me this opportunity to write it. And I wasn't going to speak at it. I wasn't going to read it, but I felt it was appropriate because I need to do this. Okay. So my mom, Sylvia Janine Joara, was born in Orléans, Algeria, on the 9th of Sivan, 1940. The date of her entry into the world, just 2 days, she used to say, 2 days after Shavuot, which the Rabbi Yochanan, she had mentioned as well, that she shared that birthday, and her English birthday she shared with my daughter, her granddaughter, Miriam Leah, on June 15. She was raised in a very traditional Sephardic home alongside 3 sisters and a brother. Her father was a chazan, so she was constantly surrounded by melodies. She was very close to her parents. Ironically, she was the one who left later on. But while many of the family members began emigrating during the Algerian Revolution, our mother stayed with her parents until they were ready to leave. She lived through the great earthquake and has shared her experiences about it. She spoke about how her grandmother was living with them. She was blind and she wore a foulard, or a headscarf, in observance of modesty laws. And now they had to rescue her from her home. It was one of the most traumatic events they experienced, in addition to their abrupt move to France, which occurred a few years later. Although she had some great memories in Algeria, going on family vacations to the beach in Algiers, she had never any desire to return because Algeria was never the same. After their departure, the family headed to the south of France to a city called Draguignan, where they rebuilt their commerce business. Her father, however, was not the same. She loved him dearly, and it was very difficult for her to see him suffer when he had worked so hard to build the family businesses, as well as the family unit. Eventually, he had a stroke and passed away on the first day of Chalamot Sukkot. in 1976, the year I was born, who actually later on her sister passed away, her eldest sister passed away on that same day, Zara. My mother was devastated. She was very close to her dad. She managed one of the supermarkets there and loved being with her family, spending the holidays and special occasions together. Her sisters were nearby, and so she loved spending time with her nieces and nephews. They all loved Tata Sylvia. She was fun aunt who was always ready for an adventure. One Purim, her friend convinced her to go to Paris to a party where she met my dad. She always said it was his combined complexion and his blue eyes that stole her heart, but I think it was the fact that he was Israeli. She loved Israel, and she wanted to be there. And one summer she actually worked on a kibbutz in the field of apples, and her dream was to move there permanently, and that was the plan. However, en route, my father wanted her to visit Le Grand Rabbin in Brooklyn, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they ended up getting stuck there for 53 years. You could imagine, the stuck is in quotes, by the way. You could imagine the culture shock moving from the Côte d'Azur to a Brooklyn basement. My mom accepted everything with grace and positivity and embraced her new life, which she often referred to as full of meaning and excitement. She was the one who taught us to love diversity and instilled in us the faith we have today. From the big issue, from the money matters to the little issues and finding a parking spot, she always called out to Hashem, Dieu est grand. She would say, Hashem is large. The Chabad headquarters in Crown Heights is quite hectic, especially during the month of Tishrei, and it was particularly busy with the Rebbe while the Rebbe was alive. The neighborhood was overflowing with people from all over the world. Our mom thrived on this special atmosphere. She loved it. She so loved it. She had an open heart, open home, and fed so many, not only with her delicious food, which was an endless supply. I don't know how, she always had enough for everybody, whoever came in, it was crazy. But also with her spiritual love of Hashem and Judaism. She didn't have an easy life, but you would never have known. She always said everything is good. She loved people and people loved her. She was energized by helping others and bringing joy into people's lives. On top of helping others, she was also the one who took care of everything in our home, from cooking to handling the finances to changing her own car tire. Oh, we don't know how she did it all. She wanted to be an English teacher. She loved America because of maybe of the American soldiers who gave her those chewing gum back in Algeria. Or perhaps it was, the easygoing, laissez-faire attitude the Americans have. She worked as a cook for children, first in Lubavitcher Shiva and then in Olasora for over 15 years, where she was endearingly known as Savta Sylvia. However, she wasn't only the cook. She went to the classrooms to make sure each child was eating appropriately and ensured that they were happy with her food. She always went above and beyond with everything she did. When the daycare didn't have buses to drive the kids to school, she immediately offered to become the driver to ensure the kids made it to the school. Her life's purpose was to make sure others were happy. Whenever anyone needed a lift, she was there, whether it was an actual lift in a car or a spiritual lift, you could always count on her. When our father was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness 4 years ago, it was she who took him to his appointments and ensured he received the appropriate care. Unfortunately, we had no idea that she too was succumbing to sickness as well. By the time he was diagnosed, she was quite sick, but she fought until the end. She loved life and she loved people. She lived to give, and when she could no longer do that here physically, her soul departed to her continue to work from above. Her neshama was too large for her limited body. She passed away on her daughter's English birthday, April 20th, giving me the gift of not seeing her suffering in this world anymore. While we're trying to see the positive of all this, it is extremely painful. She has left a huge hole in all of our hearts, in our lives. Who will we call when we arrive at our destination? Who will we call when we have news to share? Who will we call when we need an extra hand? Who will we call just to hear her energized voice? Her passing was on the 29th of Nisan, also known as Yom Kippur Katan, ushering in the Rosh Chodesh Iyar. She finally fulfilled her long life aspiration to be in Israel and was buried on Erev Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh Iyar. My mom was very proud of all of her children. She would often say, I have 5 different fingers, I have 5 different sons. Of course, her daughter was on a completely different hand. There are already quite a few projects being created to honor her memory. Her grandson, Ari, began a Shabbat Zmirot project in his yeshiva for her love of singing. The learning of Mishnayot, as we mentioned, was completed for her Shloshim. The next volume of the transformative Daf Kiddushin is being dedicated to her shining memory, along with the next 12 months of podcasts and videos. A garden is being planted in front of her residence at 1365 Carroll Street, which had literal open-door policy, and Sylvia's food forest that will embody her love for feeding people and especially making children happy is being planted at the Harmonium, a retreat center botanical sanctuary in Massachusetts. Family and friends will continue to join together to celebrate her life and the innumerable positive impacts she has made on so many. תהיה נשמתה תשרה בצרה החיים.